Welcome to the Dana Grant Show, where heart-centered stories, authentic connections, real talk, and real action come together. I'm your host, Dana Grant. I'm a life coach, speaker, and believer in the boundless power within every one of us. Each week, we're diving into raw, transformative conversations that not only spark healing, but growth and unshakable clarity. Because you know what? Your story matters. Your voice deserves to be heard, and your purpose is waiting to be fully lived. You're in the right place. Let's begin. Welcome back to the Dana Grant Show, where I have someone in the house today, Dan Clark. I met him at Secret Knock. His energy in the room of about 300 people was like a beacon. His information, how he shows up in the world, is a beacon. I wasn't wrong on that. But he is not only, I never read, but I got to read some things. He's not only a Hall of Famer speaker, he is a New York Times bestseller selling author, a master storyteller, and boy, can he tell stories, and a songwriter. I didn't put that down, but I want to hear about that too. And he's one of the most influential international voices in the world. And I would agree with that. So I want you to welcome Dan Clark to the show. Welcome, Dan. So glad you're here.
How are you? It's so great to be on your show. I echo your observation in Secret Knock, 300 people, men and women. And it's like everybody shows up in the typical networking setting with a stack of business cards with a personal agenda of what can I get from you? What can you do for me? And you showed up with that. You didn't have a sales pitch. You turned it into a serve pitch. How may I serve you? And even though you and I didn't have a lot of conversations, I watched you and the way you interact, using the lyrics to one of my hit songs. People leave you saying, I like me best when I'm with you. I want to see you again. So it's an honor to be on your program. And I'm selfishly on here trying to figure out who you are, how I might serve you. And so it's kind of a fun thing. It'll probably turn out to be a mutual aberration society, and I'll be asking you as many questions as you ask me.
Well, and a long-term friendship. You know, when you meet people, you just know you like them and you're like, I'm going to know him for a long time. You know, you're a great mentor. You held great space. I saw people drawn to you. But that being said, you brought something up. And, you know, I have like 4 pages of note that I stayed up till midnight, just had some dental surgery. For those of you that are watching on YouTube or hearing me, you're like, is she got a lisp today? Nope. My jaw is just a little bit swollen, a little bruised. But we're doing it anyway. You are a songwriter. And when we were at Secret Knock, you actually ran through some lyrics and everybody was swooning over you. And I'm like, I am not a swooner, but that was pretty impressive. Let's talk about that. Let's talk about how multifaceted you are.
You know, I think in the world of AI, which makes everyone afraid that we can talk about in a few minutes,
Yeah.
we fail to understand that it's still about the human connection. That AI and high tech and anything we do on the internet is a tool, and how and why and when we use it is a choice. So we're still in charge of the prompts. AI can only scrub and access information that already exists. So it can't be creative. We are still in charge. And having said that, the number one connector of the human spirit, soul to soul, heart to heart, is music, because you can take a melody that evokes emotion and you can tie it in with lyrics, with words, knowing that the hook is what sells the song. It's the punchline of a story that connects with the audience at the end of the story. So in my world, there's no disconnect from writing 37 books, especially my newest one that just came out called Story Selling. How to 5X your value, how to 10X your influence, and how to turn your words into wealth. I'd love to talk about that, and it just barely came out. There's no disconnect.
We're going to talk about that and talk about the fact that I want to know if your songwriting equates to, you know, you're one of the leading world speakers on stage.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So
I'm a primary contributing author to all the Chicken Soup for the Soul books too. So Mark, Victor, Hansen, and Jack, their mugs were on the back of every volume, but they didn't write stories. They would go out and
Yeah.
speak and tell my stories. My stories were still some of the most iconic, famous stories of that entire series. I had multiple, like 73 to 80 of my stories. But let me just
Read the
tie
book.
in the significance of being a master storyteller to the significance of writing gold record songs. It's all about the hook. So the formula, let me just lay the foundation here, Dana, as far as the
Oh, is there a
formula for
formula?
writing.
This is interesting.
There's a
I'd love to hear
there's
about
a
that.
formula for writing a story, and here's the formula to turn your experience into a story. Too many times someone's on a podcast and they just ramble about an experience. Too many people stand on stage and they ramble about an experience, but they've never taken the time to take that experience and craft it into a story with life lessons worth sharing.
Mm.
So here's the 5-step formula to write every story. Your clients, your listeners, your viewers can take this to heart. The first thing we have to do is ask ourselves, what's the message? What are we trying to teach with a story or with a song? The second step is you have to create a protagonist, a champion of your message. The knight in shining armor, the superstar who will fight to her death to defend your truth, to defend your message, to defend your point. The third element is an antagonist, the person who created the conflict, the person or place or thing that created the pain, that gives the purpose of the champion of your message to even exist. The fourth thing, you've got to add dialogue. You never retell a story, you relive a story. And in order for you to invite people into embrace a specific character or to feel the emotion, you got to have dialogue. And then the fifth element is you got to have a hook. You got to have a punchline. My buddy Tim Nichols wrote, "Live Like You're Dying" for Tim McGraw. Garth Brooks sings, I could have missed the pain, but then I had to miss the dance. Trisha Yearwood, the song Remembers When. Something you said before
Some
we
of
got
my
on the
favorite
air.
songs. I love
Yeah,
those
something that
songs.
you said on the word on the air, before we came on the air, Dionne Warwick's song, "What the World Needs Now is Love, Sweet Love." It's the
Yeah.
hook. So let me give you an example of how that formula works with one of my iconic stories. A mother encourages her daughter to come home as soon as school is over. The time comes, the time goes. 30 minutes late, her daughter walks in through the front door of her home and her mother scolds her. "Where have you been? I've been worried sick." She says, "Oh, Mommy, I walked my friend Sally home. She dropped her doll on the sidewalk. It broke all the pieces. It was awful." Her mother said, "So you're late because you stayed to help your friend pick up the pieces of the doll and put it back together again?" She said, "Oh, no, Mommy, I didn't know how to fix the doll. I just stayed to help her cry." So now let's talk. What's the message? Unconditional support. Love, I'm there for you no matter what. Who's the protagonist? Who's the champion of the message? The little girl.
Yeah.
Who's the antagonist that's creating the conflict, the pain? The mother. Is there dialogue? Oh, yeah. Reason leads to conclusions, but it is emotion that leads to action. And what's the hook? I just stayed to help her cry. So when you can inculcate those 5 elements in every story, and you can inculcate those 5 elements into every song, think about it, there is no disconnect, and therefore being a songwriter, I've played the guitar since I was in the 3rd grade, since I was 8, but that's my outlet. When I'm sad, when I'm lonely, when I'm alone in a loved one's arms, when I'm lonely, when I'm alone, no, when I feel lonely in a loved one's arms, alone in a crowded room, I can pull out my guitar. I have my guitars. I have 7 guitars. I have guitars here in Arizona, my home, up in Salt Lake City in the mountains. I don't have to pull them out of a case. They're on my guitar stands. They're in my recording studio, so that when I want an outlet or I have an inspiration, I can sit down. And if we can start looking at life as connectors, if the purpose of speaking is to connect, it's to connect heart to heart, spirit to spirit. There's no better connection than storytelling, and there's no better connection that outlasts the message than music, because we can continuously sing the melody. And if the hook is a hook, if it's a powerful punchline, that message, like a well-told parable, will outlast listening to the song, will outlast listening to the speaker.
Is that timeless? I mean, we talked about all the years that that 2026. I just, with AI and all of the things that seem to be shifting so rapidly. I say, and I called it. I said connection is key for 2026. I was on a news broadcast
Yeah.
last year, and they said, "What do you think? What do you predict?" And I'm like, connection is everything. That you've got to stay grounded and connect. What do you think, Dan? What do you think that we need the most as a speaker that speaks on in, all the influential stages and just in life? What do you think we need to do right now for the people that are listening in my audience? A lot of entrepreneurs, a lot of people that are feeling lost right now. They're not getting what they
Yeah.
wanted out of Q1, Q2. They're like, what's happening? Everything is, and I hear this a lot, and I'm sure you do. Everything is changing. What can they do to pivot ground and kind of understand what's needed?
Such a great question, Dana. Most people talk about how many times do we hear people say, what keeps you up at night? And we've all been bamboozled to think about that answer. I ask, what gets you up in the morning? No matter what
Mm,
your past has been, you have a spotless future. Is your why bigger than your why not? What's your purpose? Why are you moving ahead? That's number one. Number
mhm.
two, we have to go back to Dr. Jim Rohn's famous line that everybody's been quoting. I think I was the first guy who quoted it on stage back 1,000 years. We become the average of the 5 people we associate with the most. Well, let me dive a little deeper. Which
Yeah.
means if you hang around with 5 broke people, you're going to become the 6th. If you hang around with 5 negative, whining, blaming, complaining, fearful, negative folks, you're going to become the 6th. When you put a hard to catch horse in the same field with an easy to catch horse, most of the time you end up with 2 hard to catch horses. And in the human condition,
Mm,
when you put a healthy child in the same room with a sick child, most of the time you end up with 2 sick children. So, moral to the
mm.
story, to be disciplined, healthy, and significant, we must be willing to pay any price and travel any distance to associate with extraordinary human beings, even online, especially on your podcast and on YouTube. So
Yeah.
it's a choice to surround ourselves with people who don't bring us down, but buoy us up with the possibilities of today. We
Mm,
can't focus on an outcome, a future outcome. We've
yeah.
got to answer the only question we really can answer, and that is, where are you right now? It's like ordering an Uber ride that requires that you enter in your current location. And if you lie about where you are, the directions won't work. So
Right.
think about it. I love quotes because I'm into punchlines. The purpose of a leader is to grow more leaders who believe what you believe, not generate more followers. And if you
Right.
want to take it into sales, let's just quote my buddy Simon Sinek. We have the same publisher. We've been on the program many times together. The The goal is not to do business with everybody who wants what you have. The goal
Yeah.
is to do business only with those who believe what you believe, so they choose you, not just somebody who does what you do. So now let's tie it into music. I've written
Mm,
hundreds of songs. I had a bunch of songs recorded before my throat surgery and my fiasco with my throat. I recorded a lot of songs, recording artists. And what
yeah.
keeps songwriters and recording artists motivated is the goal, the dream of having a platinum selling record, which means we sell 1 million songs, we sell 1 million records.
Mhm.
And what keeps us motivated to never sell our souls, to be true to ourselves, to understand what we believe and then live our beliefs, is the reality that there are 300 million people in America, which means you can literally piss off 299 million and still go platinum. We don't have to sell our souls to anybody. We don't have to be everything to everybody. So the
No, this is
people who are
good.
living their lives in fear, fear and faith cannot coexist. Replace your fear with faith in something. And it's not hope. French
Yeah.
philosopher Pascal, he said, too many live their lives hoping to be happy, but because they only hope, they never really are. It's like they're
Oh,
waiting for somebody to invite them to the senior prom and they've never even taken the time to learn how to dance. So instead of worrying about all the negativity and all the things we can't grasp and can't understand, focus in on what really does matter. And here's the last challenge I give to your viewers, to your listeners, that's so powerful. We have to start focusing in on things that never change. Why are we always talking
mm,
about change? What about the
right.
things that never change?
Right.
Amazon never. What never changes? People want a variety of opportunities and menus and products and services.
Yep.
We want them at a great price, and we want great service
Fast.
and delivery. Those
And we
three
want it
things will
fast.
never change.
No.
Those are facts. They never change regardless of the generation.
We can't go back,
So,
can we? We can't
no,
go back to, I grew up in a simpler, easier, no cell phone. I mean, we talked previously that being a lobbyist, flying from California to DC, I did red eyes with SB bills on my lap that were this thick with one of those little lights, no
you got it.
laptop, no cell phone. And when I got a cell phone, it was this huge box and, 15, thank God I
Yeah.
didn't pay for it. But, it was a different world, but somehow, and I always said this because I trained for years with them as a leader, but I said, keep it simple. Keep it simple. This is
Oh,
way.
yeah.
And when I created the cauliflower pizza crust company, I'm like, keep it simple. I feel, do you feel, because I do believe you have your finger on the pulse everywhere. What do you think about that? My motto, keep it simple. Whenever I get overwhelmed, I have to strip it back. I got to keep it simple.
Yep. Yep. Keep it simple. But let's just use a different vernacular for a second.
Yeah.
How many times have we heard you got to think outside the lines, you got to think outside the box? As a maverick renegade, I always ask, what if the answers are still in the box? Most people who come to speakers and trainings, they come in search of the new answers. Come on, Dana, give me the pixie dust. Come on, Clark, give me the secret sauce.
I know.
When in reality, don't you think we ought to come in search of the right answers? And the right answers have always been right, or we can't call them right. Which means we don't worry about millennials or Gen Xers or baby boomers. What worked all those years ago still works today, regardless of our technology, regardless of
Yeah.
AI.
Yeah. You know, it gets
Integrity,
redundant. We don't need
honesty.
to reinvent ourselves and figure out.
No.
But yeah, people are like,
And
that's
what
so
about
redundant. I'm
being
like, yeah, but
what about being trustworthy, loyal, helpful, friendly, courteous, kind, obedient, cheerful, thrifty, brave, clean, and reverent? They have never changed since the 1800s, 1700s, since the time of civilization. Let's focus in on service before self, integrity, a commitment to excellence in all we do. All these bells and whistles that distract us take us away from who we really are. When I was at Secret Knock, Dana, I watched, I listened, I observed, and I saw how many people were there just for them. And then I saw the handful of individuals who were truly there for others, and you were leading the pack.
oh,
So
thank
when
you,
we
Dan.
start asking these complex questions about, oh my gosh, what are we going to do? How do we help people with this fear? And how are we going to make 2026 better than 2025? All we have to do is go back to remembering that everything required for us to take ourselves to the next level is already inside of us. Everything required to take our organizations and our products and services to the next level is already inside of us. Let me ask you a question. How many notes are there in music? Most people say 7 because they only count the major notes. A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Contraire, mon frère. In the year 1685, a very famous music composer in Western Europe decides he wants more options. He's the guy that put the black keys on the piano. So when you look at the 88 keys on a keyboard, there are 7 white notes and 5 black notes, a total of 12 notes in music. What does this have to do with our conversation? Everything. Every song ever written in any genre was written with the exact same 12 notes. The only difference between one song and another song is the order in which those 12 notes fall and the timing and spacing in between the notes.
Yeah.
So the question of the day is, what's the difference between a hit songwriter and a lousy songwriter that have access to the same 12 notes? What's the difference between a great speaker and a lousy speaker? They have access to the same storytelling process that I teach. What's the difference between a great banker and a lousy banker? They have access to the same interest rates and the same economy. The answer is the same for everything. The difference between a hit songwriter and a lousy songwriter is passion, creativity, and imagination. So we have to hang around with the right people who believe what we believe, who have the same core values, moving in the same direction to heal the world by healing themselves first. Everything that you represent, life celebrator, core create, all those things that I read about you in your bio, in your website, in who you really are, in listening to your conversations. When we can focus in on those things, we become hit songwriters. We become more than transactional human beings. We become transformational because we've connected the head with the heart. is so critically important that we understand. I learned this through my paralysis, my football injury, if you ever want to talk about that.
Yeah, I want to go back. I mean, I know who you are now. How I met you was like boom. I'm like a laser. When people are on my radar, it's like laser, and I can't shake because it's signs and it lets me know it's vibration, it's energy. And I talk about universal laws and God and connection, and I'm like when people come that strong in, I'm like I got to know that person.
Well,
And I want
let me
everyone to know
compliment
you
you.
because I know you got communities. I know you got a lot going on, and we'll talk about that later. But you were, I mean, you're not only tall, and in that room when you stood up, you obviously are a beacon because we can see you. But there's with that, I say energy goes out. What is 18 feet in all directions? You can feel the vibrational energy of someone who's showing up, observing, of service, and is listening. I mean, you're listening to the energy of the room of what's needed. You get your finger on the pulse. I don't see that very often. I see people
But that's you too.
need.
Remember,
Yeah.
that's you too. I want to compliment you again and again, Dana.
Oh, thank you, Dan.
You you don't just talk it, you live it. And when I coach speakers, I've been teaching speakers. I've taught at the university level for 11 and a half years, which allowed me to crystallize what I've learned in my 40-year Hall of Fame speaking career. Seek to bless, not impress. If you're nervous before you speak, it means you think it's about you. If you're excited before you speak, it means you know it's about them. And so what you
Mm.
epitomized at Secret Knock when we met, when I watched, is the reality that we have to be exactly the same off stage as we are on stage. We can't live a canned speech life. It has to be organic. Our conversations have to be about what we really believe and who we really are.
Yeah.
And in your experience as a wonderful host and as a great question asker, I don't even know if that's grammatically correct,
Oh, that's my favorite line.
but
I always say,
but you
question
always
asker.
ask. I know, but listen to you, and I've watched and listened. If you want to guide your life, if you want to find that mentor in your life, listen. And then go to the people who have the answers. You can turn decades into days, as Tony Robbins reminds us, if we just find the right mentor, which is obviously quantified in the two quotes. The purpose of a leader is to grow more leaders who believe what you believe, not generate more
Mm.
followers. Knowledge is power, but it has no heart. We don't learn to know, we
Mm.
learn to do. All the information in the world isn't going to make a person successful. It's like the guy who has 3 PhDs, one in philosophy, one in psychology, one in sociology. He doesn't have a job, but at least he can explain why. So the quote I used earlier, reason leads to conclusions, but it is emotion that leads to action. And
Yeah.
that's you, Dana. That's why we have connected. That's why you
Yeah.
have so many amazing clients. And by the
Yeah.
way, let me just compliment you in another way.
Wow. This is a
Men can
love
be role
fest.
models to men can be role models to a man.
Yeah.
But women can be role models to both men and women because you can get men to do things that other men can't get us to do. So,
Oh.
for all of you women listening and tuning in from
Mm.
a male's perspective, played football for 13 years. I'd like to think of myself as a macho man,
A lot of
un,
testosterone there.
un, unafraid to cry,
Yeah.
creating emotional prosperity wherever we go. Let
Yeah.
me just share this quick experience. I'm the first speaker at the very first uh, National Women's Military Symposium in Washington, D.C. I'm the keynote speaker. I
Mm.
walk into a room of 3,000 women in military uniforms. God bless my soul. Whoa.
Well, there
And
you
I'm the
go.
only man,
That would
and
have
I'm
been
the
a
only man, and
challenge.
I'm the only man in the room.
Yeah.
So I'm introduced and I stand up and I decide at the beginning of my speech, I'm going to flatter one of my dear friends, a mentor of mine, 3-star Air Force General Maggie Woodward. So in front of her colleagues, I said, with all due respect, I just want you to know that General Maggie Woodward is one of the finest female general officers in the United States military. And she stands up and interrupts my speech. She says, Danny, so I knew I was in big trouble. She says, Danny, I'm not one of the finest female general officers in the United States military.
You're correct.
I'm one of the finest general officers who happens to be a female, and don't you ever forget it. Talk about equal pay
Mm.
for equal work. Talk about equality, talk about
Ooh.
partners in crime, talk
Ooh.
about I love you, I respect you, not for what you do, but for who you are. Together we rise. Gender
Amen.
equality is about merit-based performance. It's about belief. Back in the day, you men have to get in touch with your feminine side. No, we don't. We have to get in touch with the right side, the side of humanity that connects us with love and integrity and intuitive compassion and empathy and our ability to listen. And that's what this is all about. That's who you are, and that's who I'm striving to be. It's so critically
But
important.
let's face it,
On stage, yeah.
took years to get here. I mean, as you're talking, I go back to setting records with the United States Chamber of Commerce and flying into our satellite office in San Jose and being there on a round table of about 18 men, me the only women, and I'm 30. They're older. I'm setting records that have never been broken to this day. And I've set multiple sales records at different companies. And as a lobbyist, I just gathered and they didn't like me. I mean, I went through a lot of not liking me, and
No, I'm
I don't
sure
know.
they liked you. They were threatened by you. They liked you. How could you not like Dana Grant? But they were threatened by you because of their insecurities.
But I bet it were backwards because I wanted to know so much about what they were doing. But what I did was all of their complicated systems, I just broke down to, I think it's the way my brain works. I needed to keep it simple, whether it be trauma, whatever it was, or my dyslexia. I said, I have to break it down. I have a high IQ, but this is the way I understand it. And this is the way I think people will understand it. I want to respect their time. So I'm going to cut to the chase. And I remember these like the sales pitch that was like a whole book, Dan. And I'm like, oh man, I don't know about this. And I remember a little flash of my little badge. And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to do five finger standalone, one make a fist. I'm going to talk about the Boston Tea Party, things I know about. And they're like, what are you going to do? And I'm like, and I set records. I don't, whatever I did was smashing, whatever, going through exactly this. And people come to me with sale pitches all the time, and I'm sure you do too. People want to make more money, they want more joy, and it's always like, how can they know more about how they can expand and accumulate? What do you have to say about that? For the people that want to make more money, they want to speak, they want to up their prices. What can you say to those people?
I'll keep it simple, my friend. What a great question again. So my flagship book, The Art of Significance, Achieving the Level Beyond Success, published by Penguin
Mm.
Random House, came out way back in 2013. And when I finished my book tour, 6-month book tour, I realized that the number one most frequently asked question was, Clark, what's the difference between success and significance? And I
Mm.
answered that with this experience. I was in a conversation with one of my football teammates who was drafted into the National Football League in the second round by the Philadelphia Eagles. And after 2 years with the Eagles, he's traded to my Oakland Raiders. After 4 years in the league, playing at the highest Pro Bowl level,
Did you
one
just
day he
say that,
walked.
not to interrupt, but you were an Oakland Raider and I was born in Oakland? You remember I talk about Jaja Birds and all the synergy? I was
Oh
born in
yeah,
Oakland and you were an Oakland Raider. Yeah. So,
projected
yeah,
number one
carry
draft pick by
on.
the Raiders back in the day.
Yep.
And
Back in the day.
so after he's traded to my Oakland Raiders, he's there for 4 years in the league total. And one day he walks out of practice, quits, never to play again. Why? He loved being a football player, but he hated playing football. He
Mm.
loved the celebrity perks and the
Mm.
fame and fortune
Yeah.
that he got, that he was able
Mm.
to achieve by focusing in on a destination that's impressive, competing against others,
Mm.
and focusing in on what matters at the moment. But
Mm.
because he was misaligned with who he was and what his real purpose in life was, and he hated what he had to do to become successful, competing against others, he would never become significant and he would die with his music still in him. So, bottom line, successful people get what they think they want, competing against others for materialistic things, fame, fortune, attention. And those of us who are living lives of significance actually want what we get by focusing in on a journey that's important, competing against what we're capable of, so we don't die with our music still in us. So the answer to your question, what I say to all these people who think they need more money, more fame, more fortune, more followers, more TikTok views, they're chasing the wrong thing and they're going to die with their music still in them. When are they going to come to grips that this life is not, nothing happens to us, everything happens for us. It's not what we do. It's realizing that success is achieving something. Success is chasing something. Significance is becoming someone.
Yeah.
Success is chasing something we think we want. Significance is becoming someone we love, someone we're proud of, someone who serves the world and leaves them in better shape than we found them. So everybody leaves us saying, I like me best when I'm with you. I want to see you again. So when I sit down and I coach and people want to make more money, well, that's great. We love to have toys and go on vacations. You and I have been talking. We've been in Florida. We're traveling the world. I've spoken on 6,000 stages in 79 countries. And most of the time, these corporations, these Fortune 100, these NFL teams, these Super Bowl champions, these government agencies, they want us to come in and help them with a process to help them become more profitable and generate more revenue. We know that. But if our message is only about that, how sad is that? The goal of bringing people together is to have us leave better human beings because we've connected heart to heart. If you'll let me share what happened to me in my football experience before we
I want to go back and I want to go.
It'll make more sense.
We went to the current, but I love going back because, and then that little Jaja bird, is it called a Jaja bird? I always make up my own words, but it's like there's, it's when I'm born in Oakland, you're an Oakland Raider, and I'm like, there's a Jaja bird. I mean, it just another connection, another, synchronicity. Yeah, take me back. My dad was a huge fan. I'm like generations of Oakland. And people are like, Oakland. I don't even like to say it because people are like, you were born in Oakland? Yeah, on Pill Hill. Yeah, Dr. Mills. Yeah. And the house I was born, it was tore down. But go ahead. Let's talk about that. Oakland Raiders.
Okay, so later on in my life, I had one of my 6 offices in the country in Danville on the East Bay, and my brother lived in Alamo right next door. And that's just crazy. So
my dad owned a pool company. We built the first house in Danville. I grew up in Pleasanton after Oakland. We moved to Pleasanton on Hopyard Boulevard.
Oh, yeah.
First house before there was no Stone Ridge Mall. There was a Denny's out there, fields where I used to catch ladybugs and fall asleep as a kid and wake up. And now it's a whole nother ballgame. But and then we moved to Danville, Alamo. You are killing me.
You're so fun. So here's my story, just to clarify. So I was a projected #1 draft pick by the Oakland Raiders. I had an invitation tryout by the Kansas City Royals out of high school as a baseball pitcher. So I was, fairly highly recruited athlete and All-American, blah, blah, blah.
Did you grow up in Kansas? Is it Kansas your home turf?
No. I was born in Arizona, Mesa, Arizona.
Oh, so Arizona went to and then went to Kansas.
Yeah, but then I ended up going to the University of Utah where I played football and baseball as a scholarship athlete. So I was a projected #1 draft pick by the Raiders, had my meeting with Al Davis, got my letter from Al Davis and Ron Wolf, who was the head of player personnel. And then here's what happened. First day of practice, coach blew the whistle, and another player and I ran full speed into each other in a violent head-on collision, smashing my right shoulder in the cutting edge of my fiberglass pads, and we slammed to the ground. And when Lyle got off of me, I had compressed the 7th cervical vertebrae in my neck. I'd severed the axillary nerve in my right deltoid muscle, and I'd suffered a grade level 2 concussion, which is the worst concussion you can possibly get.
Yeah.
And cried myself to sleep. Bad idea. My eye drooped. I had loss of speech. I couldn't talk anymore. My right side was paralyzed and my arm dangled helplessly at my side, leaving me paralyzed for 14 months. I went to 16 doctors, 15 of whom told me I would never get any better. I would never recover. And let me ask your viewers, your listeners, what happens if you believe that? You never get any better. And my life spiraled downward until I hit what I thought was rock bottom. And now that I fought my way back to a 95% recovery, my right shoulder is still totally numb. So it's the remnants of my paralysis that continuously reminds me that nothing happens to us, everything happens for us. When we hear people speak, we don't want to hear from someone with an open wound, woe me, feel sorry for me. We want to hear from somebody who has scars, with scar tissue, who can say, I've been there, done that. It's going to be okay. It's always okay in the end. And if it's not okay, it's not the end.
Was it the end of the football career? I'm
yeah.
like on the side of my, that was it.
Yep. Would have been Super Bowl 15. I have a Super Bowl 15 ring. I have it in my trophy case because I didn't earn it, but I knew so many of those guys and I still keep in touch. And that's why I love working in the NFL. I've worked with most of the teams of the National Football League, team building, leadership, culture,
However, if that had not happened, I don't think it would have brought you here. Yeah, we wouldn't be talking today.
Exactly. Connect the dots, which means it's one of the best things that ever happened to me. Don't misunderstand me, not my paralysis, but who I became because of it. You see, I thought I was a football player when in reality, that's just what I did. It's not who I am as a man. Yeah. And when we identify ourselves in terms of what we do instead of who we are, we become human doings instead of human beings. Unacceptable of significance is what we seek. So what happened is, as I started to recover, here are the 3 most frequently asked questions that I'm asked as I started to get better that I think will help tie a bow around our conversation, give you an insight on the answer to every one of your questions at a deeper level. Question number 1, Clark, what do you mean you thought you hit rock bottom? If you remember nothing else I say, please remember that no matter how hard life seems to be, no matter how tough times get, nobody ever hits rock bottom. We hit rock foundation. We hit rock belief. We hit the baseline core values and governing principles on which we were raised. Question number 2, why did I keep going to so many different doctors? We've already talked about it, Dana. I kept going from doctor to doctor until I found one who believed I would get better. Let's talk about peak performance. High-performing superstar champions do not like to be around mediocre people. And mediocre people do not like to be around high-achieving champion, positive mindset people. It's oil and water. So forget about trying to be everything to everybody. Let's find our community. Let's find our peers and let's change the world one person, one story, one podcast, one opportunity, one book at a time. Yeah. And that's why I'm focusing on my later years of just dealing with the top 1%. You're one of the top 1% at Secret Knock. You're the top 1% in any audience, in any venue. I could see you in an airport, you'll stand out. Because you're one of the top 1%, we're connecting, we're resonating at a deeper level. Remember, knowledge is power, but it has no heart. Let's talk about it. Reason leads to conclusions, but it is emotion that leads to action, which brings me to the 3rd and final question, which is the bow around our entire conversation. What took me so long to pivot? What took me so long to recover? What took me so long to get better? We still have people railing in the COVID experience, wondering why they haven't succeeded again, why they haven't been able to get back up and go again. Yeah. If you're paralyzed physically or emotionally, here's the answer, my friends. Please listen. It's my own personal eyewitness experience. I stayed paralyzed for 14 months because I was asking the wrong questions.